Well, hello, welcome to Track Chat. Graeme Sinden and Con Migro with you. Con Migro, shortly you'll have your guest Kim Buzzy Buswell on. I've seen that interview already, really exciting stuff, so don't go away. In the meantime, they had the Maddington Toyota Sprint Car Entrance Group launch on Friday evening this week. A lavish affair. It was actually held at Canning Vale Toyota. I didn't realise at the time, but it was the launch of Canning Vale Toyota's new premises down there in Canning Vale. It was a lavish affair, but after they finished that, then they got on with the launch of the Sprint Car Entrance Group series for Maddington Toyota. And boy, oh boy, the cars look great. The drivers are pumped up. It's going to be a great season.
It really is, and I'm looking forward to it like you are. I think that the great thing, of course, Maddington Toyota will be this year sponsoring our radio show as on 91.3 Sport
Yes,
FM.
indeed.
So in a lot of respects, we are cooking with gas. We're looking forward to a wonderful season. I believe that we are providing a service that's very special and important to the sport of speedway racing.
Yes. Now, Con, on the screen behind us, Craig Vosberg, and the reason I wanted to talk about that is because at the launch, Jeff Kendrick in particular spoke about the tyre shortage and the implications, or the possible implications, and the Sprint Car Entrance Group, which Gavin Migro is a member on the board, got together with Craig as the Hoosier distributor, and they worked out a plan to ensure that the Motorplex have got tyres for the whole season. And in doing so, they've actually provided one left and one right rear for each show. And Craig and his racing business will keep a log, so if a driver nominates and doesn't show, then he doesn't get an extra set of tyres. So that's all calculated into the fixture over the 12 months. And we've talked off air about this, and in fact, it's saving drivers money, isn't it?
A lot of money. In fact, I think I spoke to you the other day and told you about one of the team owners was saying to Gavin that he wasn't happy with the tyre rule. And then Gavin was reminding me, he said, well, one tyre a night is a lot cheaper than 4 or 5 tyres. And the guy came back and said, yeah, you're right. And he said, and plus he said, I've still been winning or still getting the results. So I was pretty happy. And of course, it's good that Craig goes along with that because after all, he's in business to sell tyres, isn't he?
Exactly. And he's also come up with a wonderful tyre package. You may not be able to see this as good as we can here, but in fact, you're talking about rear tyres and left and right because they're different diameters or circumferences. So one left and one right. You're looking at just shy of $1,200 for a pair of tyres a night, but it could be $4,000 and $5,000 like going on last season, couldn't it? By the time they have all of these tyres in their transporters and using them and selecting the best. So they're still winning races. But they have to control their tyres now, so that'll be an interesting element.
Well, even going back to the motorcycle speedway, Graham, when I was on the Australian Speedway Control Council, we introduced a rule with the riders could ride with an edge, and when the machine examiners used to mark the tyres, and they'd ride that night, and the next week they'd come around and turn the tyre around and they could ride with that edge. Because there, once again, and we're talking about motorbikes, you wouldn't believe it, but even in their world, the cost of tyres was quite huge. And of course, if you've got 6 heats a night and a rider rides with 6 different tyres, so the average boy couldn't afford that. So we kept that. So I think it's great. It's really is good. And they're even doing it Formula One. They're doing it IndyCar racing and World of Outlaws. So why not do it in Australia?
Absolutely. Look, I think it's a great initiative, and congratulations to Craig Vosberg and Rakes and Tyres and Accessories, because that's a great initiative that he's put towards the Sprint Car Entrance Group. As you say, rightly, he's there to sell race tyres, but he's actually limited how many he sells just to ensure that they've got tyres for the season.
Well, Vosbergen's, his father, or his late father, and now his son, they're racers, so they understand the pain that a lot of guys can go through just to get onto the racetrack. So they can save $1 here and $1 there. All the better for the sport.
Now, the other thing I just wanted to quickly touch on, Con, Maddington Toyota and the SEG Sprint Car Entrance Group launch, they spoke about prize money and all of those other things. So prize money's up at around $150,000. Now, each time you win a feature race, it's $5,000 to win. So if we extrapolate that back to last season, Jason Kendrick won, in fact, 8 feature races, 8 5s, $45,000 during the season, and then he came second in the series, and I think he picked up $18,000 for being second. So there's starting to be some really, really good money in sprint car racing, and Maddington Toyota, of course, are the major contributors for sponsorship, and well done to them. They really put into Speedway, don't they?
Well, going back in our dream with John Farrell, that's the father of Ryan Farrell, a top driver at the time, and myself got together, and he was a businessman. He realised that you can't rely on the promoters to continue putting their hands in their pocket. They have to contribute, and thus World Series, the SEG was formed. Then Jeff Kent, Des first, and the guys arrived, and since then, to Jeff's credit, and Gavin and Ron Cricky and a few other guys around the scene, they have driven it since to where it is today, and it's getting bigger.
It's a fantastic season. All the drivers are fully supportive of it. It's just great for Speedway.
Yeah, it is, and I think that's and it also brings it to another level. I mean, the fans can genuinely see these people that are coming down. They're not hot rodders or hoons. These guys are, as I call them, athletes, but they're coming with multi-million-dollar rigs. And you know yourself, when you look at just one transport, you're looking at close to $1 million. And then comes the race cars, the spares, the spare engines, and the list goes on and on. You think, wow, this is it's like the Formula One Grand Prix coming to town.
Yeah. Now at this launch, David Christensen interviewed both Callum Williamson, the winner of the Sprint Car Entrance Group Series last year, $22,000. Thanks very much. Jason Kendrick and Dane Kingshot. They're all up on the stage together. Not only are these guys athletes, but they're well-spoken young men who know what they're about. They've programmed their race cars and their budgets so that they can run the full season at that high top level. Really good stuff. Yeah,
well, I had to talk to Carl during the weekend, and that's Callum's dad, and he said they're really looking forward to this new season. So they've got the eye of the tiger again. I think that win has spurred them on. With the national title going to be at the Perth Motorplex during this next coming season, you can bet your life that those 3 guys, plus another 15 or 20, were also out there trying to win the same thing.
Yes. Well, talking about that, I went down to practice at the Perth Motorplex last Wednesday evening, and boy, I was blown away by the pace of these guys straight out of the box. Trent Pigden in particular was just sensational. He put his foot into it, got on the throttle, and I interviewed him as well afterwards, and he said, it just felt so good. I just stayed on it all through the practice. Chris Coyle, we've spoken about him often on this program. He's raced in Darwin, of course, so he got another 7 practice or drive days under his belt, but he was sensational. And David Nylander, boy, he was on the gas. He's very much improved this year.
Well, I'm pleased, and I hope that David does have a good season. I mean, we know he got wrecked towards the end of last year, but his father, Alan, has been a wonderful servant of the sport, still loves it. He's like me, he's probably a bit dopey. We still continue to do it, but hey, he's doing it and loving it. He's got a wonderful workshop, and of course, if they can turn out a good race car, originally Alan was the engine man for the great Brad Blake, who won national titles.
Yes, indeed. Just moving on quickly, Joe Chalmers also had a turn of speed down at the Motorplex, and in speed cars, Caden Manders went down there in the Graham Jones number 4, and again, we have to watch out for speed cars this year.
And John Fenton was telling me during the week that he was very impressed with Vaughan Manders, the father of Caden. He said, wow, the old man was getting around pretty quick.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm a little bit envious of you not getting down there last week, Graham. I'll just say, because I'm a sprint car fan as well as a late model, but I'm really keen to look at young Joe Chalmers. As you know, he has a guy that I think, we all think is going to have a great future. He's just come back from America, and I'm looking forward to seeing how his season pans out. And also, naturally, Brett Vosberg, and we know that he's going to be the hare, and everyone will be out trying to catch him this year.
But getting back to Joe Chalmers, he's a very presentable young man. He looks good. He's jumping out of his skin. He's just come back from the USA, as you know. The car looks sensational, and he's driving it quickly. He's looking forward to a big season.
Well, that's great, and it's going to be a fabulous year, and I look forward to it. And well, the 22nd of October it starts with the Power Palooza. That is a show that they demonstrate or show what the Motorplex can do with speedway and drag racing. But speedway, when it's on, it'll be on a nurse. Don't you worry about that. It's going to be right on from the get-go.
Let's leave it there for a minute. We'll go for a quick sponsors break and we'll come back with Con's interview with Kim Buzzy Buswell. Don't go away. Midland High-Ab and Haulage is a family-owned and operated company. They operate a fleet of prime movers and extendable trailers fitted with remote control cranes capable of moving 20-metre loads up to 22 tonnes. With their vast experience and competitive rates, Midland High-Ab and Haulage are the team you can trust to move your freight to a 1,000-kilometre radius from Perth. Phone Pete on 0407 294 248 to discuss your needs.
Whether it's your car, truck, boat or earth-moving equipment, Chayman's Auto Electrics and Air Conditioning have got you covered. Operating since 1983, they're the most respected vehicle repairers in Perth, operating from their well-equipped workshop and sales outlet in Welshpool, and a fleet of specialist mobile repair vehicles. Don't trust your vehicle to anyone else. Chayman's Auto Electrics and Air Conditioning are the experts in the field. Call 9362 6772 or visit us at 103 Harris Street in Welshpool.
No matter where we go in the wonderful world of Speedway, we all know about the stars in their cars or the stars on their bikes. The fans in their thousands flock to see these great races. But does anyone ever stop to see who really puts them on the racetrack? Well, today I've got a guy who's just about going to tell us all about it. His name's Kim Buzzy Buswell. Welcome, Kim. Great to have you on the show. Kim has been around the sport for a long, long time, hailed from Bunbury originally, and now has a crew chief of several of the great drivers and is working for a very spectacular company called RPM Race Products here in West Australia. Kim, how are you, mate?
Thanks, Con. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and have a chat.
Well, whilst you've not been a racer, you've certainly put your stamp on the sport of Speedway over the last 20 plus years. You've been involved with some of the greatest drivers in the world as far as sprint car racing is concerned, and you've certainly put together some wonderful cars, going back to the Kendrick team, the Monte team. You've had the likes of Ron and John Cricky in your midst, so it's pretty good, isn't it? It's pretty spectacular. And Ron's pretty slashy but driving you, eh?
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to be around, and Ron's the actual one that got me started in the sprint car racing with the Crickies. So I do owe a lot to them. So yeah, it wasn't Ron, I don't know where I'd be now, but I certainly changed my path in my career.
So going back in history, like you hear about this thing, the old famous saying, going west, young man, we'll see you or down in Bunbury. Probably you never ever thought you'd ever leave that area. We're quite happy living there. And all of a sudden, Ron and you are mates. And were you a mechanic, or what were you? What was your background to get involved with preparing a race car?
I had no background at all, but all I did, I was fascinated by cars and bought my first car, did my first car up, but I actually had no background, mechanical background, but I was sort of self-taught mechanic and had boats and stuff, ski boats. But yeah, just having to walk into his car yard one day and we got chatting, and the next minute I'm working on the thing. So, and I love Speedway. I love sprint cars back in the day, and Ron got me started, and then from then on I never looked back from that. I didn't think it would take me to where it's taken me, but I never forget where I come from though.
No. And then from Ron Cricky, of course he was then driving for the famous Kendrick race team out at Osborne Park. Next thing, you were now working there full time, and you were even honing your skills even more on preparing race cars.
Yeah, so the opportunity came about, and Jeff offered me a full-time deal to go work there. I think it was in the 2000s or something. Might have been before. It would have been before that. But I went there, worked for Jeff, for them guys for a few years. Then I had this offer to go to work to America with Randy Hannigan, work for the Mopar deal when it was just the Mopar first started out.
Just talking about Randy Hannigan, I used to tell Graeme before we went on the show, Randy used to always say to me, Con, running second's like kissing your sister.
That was one of his good sayings.
He's very good at it.
But so I moved my whole family to the US to pursue that, and it never, I don't know, it's just one of them things that just didn't work out in the end. So actually got to come home, and we sold everything to go do that. Me and my wife, and I God bless her for sticking by me. But yeah, I went there, did that. We sold everything we owned, and I went to do that deal, and it didn't work out. So I had to come home, a tail between my legs, and got re-established and went again.
And then you hooked up with Luch Monty for the next 16 or 17 years. What a wonderful experience that was, because he bought some great drivers, like J-Mac was one of them, and you could probably list a few more than I could. But that was a wonderful time for you, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so when Luch actually hired me, I was actually in hospital. I'd had a work accident. I was doing some work and I had a pretty bad accident, and my son was working for me at the time, Dylan. And Luch came up to the hospital and asked me, would I go and come and be the crew chief and I'll hire your son? And I'm like, well, I'm a little bit incapacitated at the moment, Luch. But I said I'd think about it, and then I accepted the job, and he just it was, for me, it was just a deal that I really wanted to get into. It was a good opportunity. There was a lot of scope for me to do things, and hence we've done won so many races, so many big races with Luch and the people we've had in our cars. He able to me the freedom to be able to do what I wanted to do, put deals together. We always worked on who we're going to get to drive it, and because Luch always wants these cars to run up front.
Of course.
And when someone's paying the bills, that's what's going to happen.
Of course, then World Series was going, which was set up by the Australian Speedway group, and that was a very successful, similar to the World of Outlaws in America, but not as big, but similar. And then you were getting top-line races to come and drive Luch's car, and you went on the road. You went on the road about 3 to 5 months a year, didn't you?
Yeah, that was about 5 months of the year. The last couple of years before COVID, we were doing probably 40 races a year, 45 races a year with James.
Yeah.
You're away a long time. We used to leave in October and we'd come home in January when the World Series came back to Perth, or early February, after the Classic. We would do them races, then we'd go back again till finish the whole season off, probably with the Easter trial.
Now, you were just mentioning James McFadden, J-Mac, or whatever you want to call him. You must feel proud when you see now he's got a full-time World of Outlaw drive, and he's one hell of a race. I mean, I think he'd probably be in the top 20 World of Outlaw races, wouldn't he? Easy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think, and a lot of people don't know what goes on behind the scenes there, but I feel like now, especially the last month or so, a lot of things have changed in that James's camp. And I think it's for the better. You could actually see yesterday when he won his first race yesterday, but I felt like he's been knocking on the door for the last few weeks to win a race. When a driver hasn't got confidence in his race car, he's not going to do what he wants to do in it.
So true.
But he certainly has that now.
Yeah. Well, moving away from North America and back to Australia, after 16 years you decided you wanted to move. You didn't want to go on the road for as long as you were going. And along came a young man by Masara who decided to set a place in Coburn Central area, not far from the Dockers. If you're a Dockers fan, I'm an Eagle, but I won't hold that against them. But now you've got this magnificent premises. I mean, I was blown away. It was like going into Buckingham Palace. You could eat your meal off the floor, and I congratulate you for the presentation of your workshop. It was magnificent. But how'd that come about, and tell us what you're doing down there now?
I actually went there one day to buy some race fuel, and just had a chat to Rick, and he asked me, he was looking for a manager to come and manage to manage this business, and asked me if I knew somebody, and I'm like, well, I might, I'll think about it. So I'm driving home back to Wangara to our race shop, and I'm thinking, well, that's probably, I could probably do that, because I was at the crossroads. I felt like I had to look at, for me personally, where am I in the next 10 to 15 years? Yeah. What am I going to do in the next 10 to 15 years?
Yeah.
I'm not getting any younger. I don't want to be laying under a race car when I'm 65 years of age. But I just felt that everything was right for me. James was doing his racing over there, so we couldn't do as much racing as we wanted to do. So I felt like it was, for me personally and my family, that it was the right decision for me to park that deal. And then I, had some meetings with Rick, and then I just took the opportunity up.
Well, going through a list of drivers, you've had the likes of Brad Furr, Randy Hannigan, Kerry Madsen, a multiple Australian champion, Jamie Veal, Stephen Lyons, Australian champion, Kyle Hurst, Shane Stewart, an awesome driver out of Oklahoma, Jock Goodyear, the young Tasmanian, and James McFadden. You've had some pretty fine drivers and a lot of other guys that never necessarily rose to those heights, but still very good drivers. I suppose it was very hard for you to pick one driver out of all that group who you thought was the best.
Yeah, that's a very hard question. I think the driver I had the most successes would have been James.
Yeah,
In
it was outstanding. And a nice young man, very quiet boy, really, not a rowdy sort of. I don't know what we expect when we see Speedway riders, but most of them, the good ones, are very quiet, aren't they?
Yeah, he's a young kid that grew up in Alice Springs.
Oh, yeah.
Little country boy, but he's come a long way, and I'm really proud of the achievements that he's achieving, and I think he's got a lot more to do.
Now, you've also been responsible of bringing some pretty special sponsorship to the sport of Speedway through Monster Energy and Milwaukee Tools. Of course, Milwaukee Tools are very big in America, and Monster Energy is right around the world, so that you played a big part in that with the Monty team and that to bring that sort of sponsorship to sport. And is that going to be ongoing, do you think?
I think so. So the way I looked at it as a way of us we could race more, but it would cost Luch less at the time in getting some funding. But it's a long, arduous road to go down that corporate sponsorship deal. The Monster deal was short for a couple of years, but the Milwaukee deal came on the back of. So Monster brought Milwaukee to the table, and then Monster changed direction. We went with Milwaukee, who were just incredible for us as just people, like people to work for. There was no pressure on performance. We weren't performance based. We did amazing, 2-seater ride days all around the country with a B-double truck, and we just tried to innovate all the time. I'd have to go across there and sit in a boardroom by myself, and there'd be all these executives there sitting there putting your case forward, and it was good, and I learned a lot from that. But that was all come off the back of trying to, we got some really good funding.
We're talking about, you say going around the country. I know that World of Outlaw starts in February in any year and finishes up in Phoenix, Arizona around about November. And I think Steve Kinser one year drove something like about 500,000 or 600,000 road miles. That was just one of the races. Every other race that was following the series had to do it. And then you had the fans, what they call them tailgaters. And these people follow a rider from they were retired people. They virtually started in Florida and end up in Phoenix. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's when you go to the World of Outlaw shows, you pull up and the car parks are just full of campers. It's, they have all their flags flying for all their teams and they support, and it's a whole different level of racing. And the fans are different. I do like the Australian fans though.
Yeah, and even going back to our local scene, we're very fortunate. We've got a magnificent venue at the Motorplex at Quinana Beach, haven't we?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the best in the world. Well, I've been to some places. I went to a couple of places with James in America, and I said, "You sure you want to race here?"
Yeah,
I didn't think that was safe, but the Motorplex is by far and above the best facility we have in this country. So,
well, Kim, we've only touched the edges of what we could talk about. Thank you very much indeed for coming with us today.
Cool.
Thanks for showing the fans and the other siders of the sport, because the stars in the cars need mechanics in their cars and their crew chiefs in their cars. So thanks very much, mate. Good on you.
Thank you. No worries.
Well, welcome back. What a great interview, Con. Kim Buzzy Buswell. Boy, has he been around sprint cars for a long time now.
Well, and to think that he started his life as a window dresser for Bowens. Probably people only my age and your age can remember Bowens in Bunbury. And today, how many people his age can say they've been around the world a million times and doing the thing they love, their hobby, their business, their life.
Now, off air, before you interviewed Kim, we spoke to him about the life on the road and how do you operate? Do you go to someone's work when you're in the USA? I'm talking about on the World of Outlaws tour. We asked him, does he go to someone's workshop or does he work out of the back of the transporter? And he said a lot of the time it's out of the back of the transporter. He's got shock absorber dynos in the back of the truck. He builds his own dyno. It's an interesting life, isn't it?
Well, it is. Really, they're self-supporting in every way, shape or form. And I said when I were going to contract drivers to bring them to Australia, I would find out what motel they were staying at. They always virtually went to the one place. And so we would be right there for a week before the race. We'd spend time driving to the motels, and I want to see Graeme Sinden race, and I want to talk to him. So I'd go, and you could do your business with him in the car park at a motel or wherever they were going to be working on the race cars. Because at the racetrack, You were there to race, not there to do business. And often we'd do the deals, had it all sorted out before the show got on the way, and made me feel good if the guy went well, and that we know that we had him secured to come back and race for us in our summer.
And he was saying most of the drivers had big Hollywood-style motorhomes. That, you know, all the sides come out and they live in those sort of things on the road. But with the transport, a B-double and a trailer behind, they've got to pull up into Walmart car parks.
Yeah.
They've got to organise, because they don't have cars, just a big truck and a transporter to wash their clothes. Just simple little things that you don't think about. But when you talk to guys like Buzzy, you get this background of what they have to put up with.
Well, often when you hear people talk and they'll say to you, me, I'm sure you've heard it too, I've never seen a transporter win a heat or a feature race yet. That is true. But if you can get to the racetrack in the minimum of fuss, that's when the transporter's probably, whilst it hasn't won the race, it's helped you to win the race because it's got you there and you're self-sufficient.
Yes,
So that's very important.
Now, Con, I notice you've got the mini pocket calendar for the Perth Motorplex there.
Yes, they're out now, and these are good because you can put them in your pocket, and if you want to know what's going on at the Motorplex, you just look it out and look at the date. The 22nd of October will be grand opening night, and away the season goes. So you can get them at the Speedway on opening night, or if you can't, see Gavin Migro or anyone of the team down there, they would provide you with them.
Well, I've actually got mine folded up and it's in the inside of my phone holder. So if I'm on the road and someone says, can you do this, or would you like to go to dinner, or whatever, I can pick up and make sure I'm not committed to a Speedway meeting. So for me, they're great.
Yeah.
Talking about Powerpalooza, that's a big show. I think we spoke on last year's show that the Monster Truck Show had 11,000 people. The Powerpalooza, in fact, draws probably one of the biggest crowds of the year at Speedway.
Well, that was the biggest Speedway show last year, and I think the last 2 years. And on the show this Saturday night, there's 2 or 4 monster trucks that will be putting on a bit of a display as well. So they're getting a triple whammy. They're getting drag, Speedway, and monster trucks all on the one show. And burnouts. Oh, yeah, burnouts. You can't forget the burnouts.
Look, it's a fabulous show that Gavin put together.
Very exciting.
4 or 5 seasons ago? 4 or 5?
Yes.
And it's just growing and growing and growing, isn't it? And then with the fireworks, it's you get a good bang for your buck.
Well, he showed me a thing or two because at the first I queried it. I said, I can't believe this is going to happen, but it has. And Gavin said to me the other night that Jimmy Cardilli and Robert Cardilli put on a fireworks display during the Monster Show. He said, Dad, honestly, it was the best fireworks I've ever seen. And he said, and that's something. I've seen a million of them in my life. And he said, they really, really and truly kicked a goal.
All right, Con, let's take another quick break. Don't go away. We'll be back soon. RCA Civil Group have gained a sound reputation for providing quality civil projects throughout Western Australia. Their scope of work includes road shoulder construction and stabilisation, drainage, concreting and asphalting, plus bulk and detailed earthworks. RCA Civil Group, Western Australia's leading civil contractor. Contact RCA Civil Group on 1300 1 Civil. Assured Learning Australia are registered training providers offering high quality training and education courses for the automotive industry. Established in 2016, they have grown to become market leaders in automotive air conditioning and electric vehicle safety service and maintenance courses. Focus on your future. Contact Lyle Barrett at Assured Learning Australia on 0488 038 904. 117 Dundas Road, High Wycombe, WA. Well, welcome back. Thanks very much to our sponsors. We can't do this without sponsors, Con. And in fact, talking about sponsors, you've got some news about our 91.3 Sport FM program, Let's Talk Speedway.
Yeah, well, how lucky we were. We won't go into all the drama what happened behind the scenes there last week, but we were able to speak to Marcel out at Maddington Toyota, and our radio show on 91.3 Sports FM will now be called the Maddington Toyota Let's Talk Speedway Racing, and that'll be on every Wednesday, excepting when the cricket's on. But it'll still appear on a Wednesday, but normally it'll be going on at 1 o'clock. But if the cricket's on, it'll have to fit around the cricket, and then replayed again at 7 o'clock at night, and that will continue right throughout the Speedway season, even when there was a break around Christmas, we'll still continue with our show, part of it. So I'm very excited about that, Graeme, and I thank Maddington Toyota because what a great support they've given our industry, and to come on a couple of guys like you and I to do it. That shows a lot of credibility in our what we're doing and what we're trying to do for the sport.
Indeed. And indeed, talking about 91.3 Sport FM, it goes to air this Wednesday as normal, but there is a cricket match involved. It's from the East Coast, and our show will be broadcast during the lunch break. So tune in to 91.3 Sport FM, watch Let's Talk Speedway with Con and Graeme, and supported by Maddington Toyota.
Very good.
Con, that wraps up another show. They go quickly, don't they?
They do, Graeme. I can't believe it's Monday again, or Tuesday again, or Wednesday again. Bang, the week's gone and we're back into it again. But I'm looking forward to our opening night, and I'm looking forward to next week when we get stuck into what's really happening in the wonderful wild world of Speedway.
Yes, indeed. Thanks for your company, Con. Great as always. Thanks for your company, and we look forward to seeing you next week right here on Track Chat.